the Niger River, which forms the Sahara's southern boundary. We reach it 17 days after we enter the desert from the Tees Valley. It is as if these people had all themselves come in from the desert and could not satiate themselves with the sight and the feel of water. We make our way into the crowd toward the marketplace. All along the Niger River is a meeting place of the North and the South, a mixture of races, costumes, and tongues. The Negro from the South meets with the Arab of the North, the nomadic Kurs, Shleurs, Tuaregs of the desert. All sorts of wares and objects of odd shapes change hands in these markets. Now, doesn't he look like a tough guy from the desert and a shrewd bargainer? Did you notice the padlock in the lady's nose, placed there perhaps to keep her nose out of other people's business? But here is a local chieftain reviewing his warriors. He took these men of his to France during the World War to fight for the French, and he wears the cross of the Legion of Honor on his desert robes. At the influence of the Crusades, which are in camel, we are approaching one of the wells. Traffic was too scarce to bother us. No speed limit and no cops. Another 200 miles done easily in 2 days. We are now in a Tuareg stronghold, in a hugger. We are guests at the court of King Amenar Ali Hanse. And then we drop. In the remote villages in the forest, life goes on as it has for centuries. After a few hours, our presence ceases to disturb, and we can watch the placid communal life of the village. The women are always at work. Here they are shelling beans, a staple of the local diet. The men do the hunting or the fishing. These people live almost entirely on frogs, or rather on tadpoles, which are caught in traps made of local reeds and vines. The traps are concealed among the reeds along the edge of the lake, and the unwary tadpoles blunder in. There is little of the excitement of the chase. The fisherman pulls his canoe along and picks up the traps. You and I could do it. But it takes a good deal of skill to steer the canoes on a straight course. The shape of the canoe is determined by the shape of the tree, and many canoes have a strong tendency to travel in circles. Outside every fisherman's hut, the day's catch is set to dry in the sun. Tadpoles hold all the vitamins in the world. The most powerful and good-looking fellows we saw in Africa were invariably men who lived on fish or tadpoles. These, well-dried and crisp, and an occasional full-grown frog will make a delectable meal. The barber shop is conveniently located on Main Street. A special study will be made of your profile to choose the style of hairdress which suits your type best. The hair is deposited in a neat little pile. This is Congo's own soapless shave. No brush, no lather, and the closest shave you ever had in your life. Different styles prevail not only in hairdress, but in the elaborate patterns tattooed by cutting the skin of the face and of the body. Many of these patterns are tribal in character and indicate the tribe and even the village of the owner of the tattooing. But there is room for a lot of individual fancy in the exercise of personal taste. Notice that his teeth have been carefully filed to a point and the two front teeth knocked out. She was camera shy and strongly objected to our taking her pictures. Our arrival in the village was usually the occasion for general rejoicing. The drums would be quickly set up. Everyone would run into his hut and return with their most elaborate costumes. No, these are not lampshades or baskets. They are Negro hats woven from local fiber. The wearer of the masks personify the chimpanzees of the forest, and their grotesque evolutions are supposed to imitate those of the chimpanzees. Note the plate lip, the huge plug inserted in the upper lip. By this time, the orchestra has appropriated the platform on the sedan. An individualist breaking all tradition with this solo dance on his knees. At least one member of the audience thinks well of him. After many days in the forest, we are again in open savanna country. We were in the only region in Africa where the African elephant, popularly supposed to be incapable of taming and training, has been domesticated and put to work. It is wonderful to see the huge beasts haul easily enormous lugs cut in the forest which no manpower could move. We were seeing our first sausage trees bearing, alas, not the juicy liverwursts which seem to hang in plenty from their branches, but entirely inedible fruit. The landscape was at last typically African. We were now in country where game was plentiful, but it was seldom that we could, unobserved, come close enough to game for photography. This busy warthog, however, apparently had not heard us coming. We reached the Dungu River, which we had planned to cross. On its far side was utterly uninhabited country, said to be a wild animal paradise. But the river, when we reached it, proved to be impossible to cross. Below us, on the sandbanks on the edge of the river, a veritable herd of hippopotamuses was asleep. The honking of the horn rudely awakened them and sent them rushing in momentary panic to the water. They had obviously been seldom disturbed, but we could not get close to them without some precaution. We succeeded, however, in watching unsuspected their family life. Mother rather anxious about baby. Father enjoying the sleep of the tired businessman. Baby seems safely in the water, but there might be a strong undertow. Now I could see the reason for the good hippo mother's anxiety. That floating log was a crocodile. He was so well hidden that even the little wading birds around him seemed unaware of his presence. Very slowly he was swimming towards the shore, and we waited for hours for a chance to photograph him on land. But nothing is more cautious or wary than a crocodile, and he was taking his time. At last he was coming ashore. Even then, neither the wading birds nor the marabou had noticed him. But at the first click of the camera, he turned and splashed back into the river. And the marabou in turn took flight. With the sedan, we explored many miles of the river bank. We would come suddenly upon sandbanks on which hippos were as thick as New Yorkers on a Coney Island beach. There must have been many thousands of hippo in that river. When we came unexpectedly too close to them, it was wonderful to see them all get up, stumble over each other in their hurry to get away to the water. The water was often too shallow to hide them. And there they would stand, nervously snorting, yawning, splashing water. We borrowed a dugout canoe from the natives and fitted it with the outboard motor we had brought with us. And in this somewhat strange vessel we explored the river further, lost ourselves in tributaries of the Dongu, and saw many crocodiles. But no transportation for the trucks across the river was to be found, and nowhere could we find a ford where we could hope that the trucks would get through under their own power without swamping the motors. I was still anxious to get some pictures of crocodiles on land, but even with the motor stopped and the men paddling cautiously, we never could get nearer than 100 feet without their waking up and dashing for the water. At last we saw one who seemed unaware of us. I signaled to the men to paddle straight towards him. They did. And when he suddenly woke up and started for the water, he nearly leapt into the boat with us. There was decidedly no chance of crossing the river under our own power. The bottom everywhere was treacherous and muddy, and the water after unexpected rains too high. We had sent for the elephants, whom we had seen at work on the edge of the forest. We planned to abandon the sedan temporarily and to use elephants to take the two trucks across the river into the game country.